Hey, welcome back. So next up, our final method on our singly linked list is called reverse. And this is a really classic computer science interview question. I'm not sure why, to be honest, because in my experience, it's just not a very practical, it's not a very commonly done thing where you have a linked list and you need to reverse it. But it is a pretty common challenge. It's in a lot of textbooks, a lot of interview prep books. So you take a linked list and you reverse it in place. So you don't make a copy. That's a little easier. You don't make a duplicate and return that. You do it in place. So you traverse, and as you go, you reverse things. Traverse and reverse. So here's what it looks like. I couldn't find a little animation to use or a way of visualizing it, so I made my own sort of ugly attempt. So if this is our linked list, singly linked list, we have our head and our tail and a bunch of next pointers. If we want to reverse it, basically what we're going to do is start at the beginning. We can only move one direction. We can't start at the end. So we start here. And we're going to make this the tail. And then we build the list backwards from there. So we do .next, which gives us this node 27. And we're going to set 27.next to be 13. But we also need to keep track of what 27.next used to be, which is 32. So we don't just overwrite it. We need to make a second variable to store the old next, which is 32. So let's say we're on 27. We're going to store 32 on the side. Just remember, 32 is in a different variable. Then we take 27 and we set its .next to be 13. There we go. Now we're on 32. So we take the .next of 32, which is 71, and we save 71, put that on the side. Then we take 32 and set its .next to be 27. And now we go back to 71. There's nothing after 71. There's no .next. So we just take it and set its .next to be 32. And then this becomes the head. So as far as the logic, the pseudocode is a little bit tricky to walk through. I tried to word this in a way that was a little easier to understand, but I think your best bet is going to be to just try this, loop through things. Don't try and follow my instructions exactly, because there are other ways of doing this, and I don't want you to get too hung up on it. But with that said, here is my pseudocode. So start off. We're reversing in place, so you write the method reverse, no arguments, swap the head and the tail. Then create a variable, you can call it next. Again, the variable names don't really matter, but create a variable called next, another one called previous, and then a variable called node or current or something, and initialize it to start at the head. So we would start all the way back here. This would be our node variable or current. And then from there, got to fast forward, we're going to loop through the list. And we're going to set the next variable to be the next property on whatever our current node is. So that's what I talked about. We're going to store the current next, so that once we change the .next to the item that came before it, we haven't lost that connection forever. So then we're going to set the next property on the node to whatever the previous was. And then we set previous to be the value of the node variable, set the node variable to be the value of the next variable. Like I said, try not to get too lost and hung up on the actual variable names. And I debated, I wasn't sure if this was helpful because it is just so ugly and confusing to read all this text and next and previous and node and variable. So to walk through that one more time, if you want some extra practice or review, you start, swap the head and the tail. And from there, we take the .next to the tail, 27, and we're going to store the current .next of 27. We're going to store a variable called next to keep track of 32, so that when we take 27.next and we set it to the previous thing, 13, we still have a reference to 32. So in this scenario, 13 would be previous, 27 is our current node, which I called the node variable, and 32 is next. So you make this connection. And then we now set 27 to be previous, and 32 to be current, and 71 to be next. So we set 32, connect to 27, and then we move our previous variable to be 32, and our node current variable becomes 71, and we connect them. And there is no .next. Okay, I hope I didn't lose anyone with this one. I know it can be tricky. Give it a shot. I'll have a solution coming up.